Hi, Bother Brigade. Here's what's bothering me today. Full disclosure and apologies in advance. This is going to be kind of all over the place, and I'm not even really sure what this is going to be, but it's just something I really need to get off my chest because I'm feeling this really weird sense of cognitive dissonance between what I'm seeing and hearing and the reality around me, and yet what I'm being told by media, basically, and how, everything's fine and we're back to normal and things are going well, right? And it's like it's not, right? So I guess what kind of started this is a couple things, but I have already delivered more COVID tests in the past week than I have in the past few months. So that's a reminder that the pandemic isn't actually over. I mean, see my previous videos about like the whole airport delays and what's causing that and stuff like that. But that's another thing, right? Oh no, won't we think of the poor people and the airport delays? It's almost like we're still dealing with the pandemic and those are still causing massive emissions all while the world burns around us, right? Like there's what, thousands dead now in Spain and Portugal from the heat domes or whatever that are happening over there. There's also wildfires. There was the massive, terrible awfulness in Britain where like large parts of London and various other corners of the UK were on fire and burning. We're still waiting, the death count because it was record-breaking temperatures over there. By the way, the last time there was record-breaking temperatures were in 2019, so not that long ago, right? So there's that whole issue, but then it's also so ridiculously hot here and also in America to the point that at least one UPS driver has died, but then there's the other video of a different UPS driver who's collapsing in front of someone's camera in a home in like Arizona or something, and then kind of gets up still shaking to go and carry on the rest of his day. And UPS had the audacity to say, yeah, this person's fine, all while again, record heat. And it's just like, oh, apparently we can't put AC in our trucks, and that's leading to these problems, including like death of at least one UPS worker, and this other one clearly suffering from heat stroke. Oh, and by the way, remember the pandemic? It's a vascular disease. It affects your heart and your like organs and your lovely vascular system and your blood flow and everything like that. Guess what's affected during heat stroke? Oh, hey, isn't this going to be a fun part of our future to look forward to? And then on top of that, right, also near Arizona, you have Lake Mead, which is drying the fuck up. And it's gone to the point where basically feds and various other organizations have said, okay, look, y'all need to figure out something or we're going to create and dictate terms to you. And we're just seeing like farms have to go away and just become crusty and dry because, yeah, it turns out trying to, make agriculture work in the desert was kind of a bad idea. And yet all these people keep moving there, which is putting greater demand on the water levels. And it's just like, what are we doing? What are we actually goddamn doing? And then there's even more heat waves and more death and more wildfires. Lytton, BC, right, had part 2 of its wildfire. Last year, it destroyed most of the town. Well, there's a new one here this year. Isn't that just great? I can't wait for this to become an annual experience, maybe, apparently. And then on top of that, right, I'm still hearing stuff like, oh, well, if you just make some more personal choices, right? If somehow I just use a few less plastic straws and recycle just a little extra harder, right? It'll somehow offset the fact of fucking Kylie Jenner taking 3-minute flights, and that just causes more emissions in that one single 3-minute flight than a great many people make in a year. And then instead, the solutions also aren't, hey, maybe we should make wide systemic changes to, our cities and our agriculture and public transit. No, we can't have that. Instead, the solution from progressive parties and people is just buy an EV, which costs more than most of us making can ever possibly afford. But that's treated as the solution. It's like, just get an EV, just get a Tesla. And it's like, with what money? Which brings us to the other big thing, which is the cost of living crisis, where more and more people can't pay for more and more things because cost of living is going through the roof. By the way, didn't you know this is basically the best time ever for corporate profits, especially in the oil and gas sector, which has reliably had $3 billion a fucking quarter profits for the past 50 or so years. But no, see, things are totally fine. We can't possibly rein in that industry and tax them into oblivion. No, that's bad. Even though, again, people are still paying record prices at the pumps in a form of price gouging. Oh, gee, won't someone please think of the big corporations or the other people? Like, to briefly return to the whole airports and delays and everything like that, beyond the fact that it's a pandemic and people have gone on to other different jobs, see my video on like Tuesday or whatever about that. There's also the fact that, I saw this article. Won't you think about the poor people from Milton, Ontario, who spent $35,000 on a safari? But they did that before they got their passports renewed. And because of all the chaos with, Passport Canada and the airports, they're going to miss their $35,000 safari, which, full disclosure, is more than I make in a year after taxes. Yeah, I'm feeling real fucking sorry for these people. All of this is just making me feel like I'm in some kind of weird upside down world where the media's trying to tell me, no, you just got to recycle more. And see, isn't this just so sad? What's causing this? Meanwhile, nurses are literally at their breaking point. Our healthcare system is collapsing. People are unable to get ambulances for hours, if not an entire goddamn day. It's known as level 0 in paramedic services. And so whether people are suffering from heat stroke, they've actually fallen and taken a bad injury, or, like someone's gotten into a terrible crash and they're bleeding out, there's no one to help these people. And it's at the point where certain doctors are saying, if your grandma or grandpa or someone is very sick, don't send them to a hospital, even if they have COVID, because if they go to a hospital, they might die because A, no one could take care of them, or B, they're going to catch COVID and die. And it's like, hey, maybe get a combination of those. Isn't that just so fantastic? I love this system we've created for ourselves. I love that this is what we have the audacity to call back to normal. And I have the media basically gaslighting me. And I have my own elected representatives gaslighting me into thinking like, help is on the way. It's like, shit needs to start happening now. In fact, it needs to start happening yesterday. And instead, it's just like, well, what can we do? What's jurisdiction? What's leadership? What's action? I don't know. I can't do that. I'm not the government or anything, says the government. And then there's big business again, raking in record goddamn profits, not doing the right things or investing in the infrastructure necessary. And this goes for the government as well, that would actually meaningfully allow us to get over the pandemic. And people are still acting like the pandemic is over. And I've legit seen people say stuff like, everyone's getting sick now. It's almost like, there was poison in the vaccine. It's like, no, it's fucking COVID. Like, it is so ridiculous that this is what the world has become. And with all the misinformation out there and the media refusing to talk about what we should actually be talking about and governments refusing to do the right thing, all while people continue to suffer and die due to the climate crisis and the pandemic and the oppressive nature of capitalism. All of this is happening and no one's doing a goddamn thing about it, even though they absolutely could. When do we riot over this already? When do we actually start tarring and feathering the politicians' homes? When do we start blockading big businesses and saying, we're not letting you out of your office buildings because you love working so much? Work on a solution already. When do we start actually doing things instead of relying on people in government and business to somehow magically swoop in and do the right thing? We've seen not only over the course of this pandemic, but over decades now at this point, that they have steadfastly refused to do the right thing. That is why the American Southwest is drying up. It's why UPS drivers are dying. It's why grandma and grandpa can't get a fucking any kind of service in the hospital or in long-term care because money matters more than people. And this is apparently normal and good, and I'm fucking tired of it. And if you can't tell, it's definitely what's bothering me today.